better than girl talk? Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? A chat with the ladies about their day, the ups and downs along the way. She's a cook, she's a chauffeur, she's a worker bee. First in the door and last to leave. Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk?
Welcome to Girl Talk. My name is Regina Ayars.
And I'm Carol Voisin.
And we are co-hosts for Girl Talk, which is a lively discussion of issues, challenges, successes of women in their daily lives. We showcase women who are doing exceptionally wonderful things, exciting things here in our Rogue Valley that are helping their communities. So Carol, would you like to introduce our guest today?
Our guest is Tonia Moro. And Tonia, we know you're an attorney at law, that you're chairperson of the board of directors of the Rogue Valley Transportation District, and you are chair of the Jackson County Democratic Party. So first, tell us a little bit about how in the world did you get to the Valley?
Well, first, thank you for inviting me. I get to join this great group of women, I guess, that you've been showcasing. I appreciate that. We all like to think of ourselves as exceptional. So I got to the Rogue Valley after growing up in South Florida and attending undergraduate school and then most of law school in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. At that time, though, I was really interested in learning about environmental law, and the law school that I went to did not have an extended program. So I obtained the assistance of one of my professors, because it's very difficult to do what I'm gonna you all know what it is, but many people don't, to non-matriculate. So in other words, yes, right? So I non-matriculated to Lewis and Clark for that third year, right?
Nice.
So I was able to take all the coursework up there, and then of course the grades transferred back to the law school in Fort Lauderdale. And so that's where I graduated from. But I spent that year in Portland. It was about 1988, I think it was. Sat for the bar in '89, and then came down to Southern Oregon for a job interview, and just fell in love with it down here, and decided, even though, well, actually it was my partner's interview. He didn't get the position, but we decided to come and stay and we've been here since like 1990. So, yeah. Yes, and so I started doing land use in the 90s, and was
Tell
able
us what
to,
land use is.
Okay.
Some people don't know what
so
that
land
is.
use this is one of the reasons I came to Oregon, and I was looking for an opportunity to study environmental issues, but Oregon was high on the list because I had learned about how progressive the state was, and in particular, we passed Senate Bill, I believe it was 100 or 101, way back in the day, and set up this incredibly important comprehensive planning system. This was not something that we did in Florida, and so there was a lot of sprawl, there was a lot of unmanaged growth, and I was particularly impressed with how progressive Oregon was when it deemed the beaches public. That was another thing that didn't happen in Florida. Private parties, as you may know, if you've ever been to Southern Florida, there's just condominium after condominium. And so it's very difficult if you are a local person to actually get to the beach because the public municipalities hadn't preserved enough park space for folks to be able to do that. So I got out here, did that study, and just, again, fell in love with the seasons, the mountains, and all those things that are, the grass is always greener. So, so I started working with local governments. Actually, the firm I was with, it was a two-partner firm, or two of us were the attorneys in the firm, and I became the designated attorney to serve as the city attorney of talent, city attorney of Gold Hill, city attorney of Jacksonville. That was the first one, actually. Jacksonville had a lot of land use needs at that time. In fact, when we got involved, there was a building moratorium that was passed by the city council because of some water and reservoir issues that needed to fix that before they can allow continued development of the subdivisions that were being slated there. So that practice was really wonderful and lovely. And so it started my career in doing appellate work, because I would appear in front of the Land Use Board of Appeals, then it would go to the Court of Appeals sometimes, and then finally I had a great case in the 90s that went to the Oregon Supreme Court, and I'm still seeing that case cited these days.
Is that the one?
That's the Brent Marr case, yes, yes.
And what was that?
That's very good. And you won.
I did
Supreme
there,
Court.
but it's interesting because it's now often cited sort of in opposition to the position some of my clients take. So anyway, it's been sort of interesting that way. But that was a case where there was a client out in the Applegate that wanted to cite a botanical kind of school and gardening school, and we argued that the land use regulations actually allowed it as an outright permitted use, and because the county wanted to impose a lot of conditions that weren't really in the code. So anyway, that experience of doing appellate law, I just determined that I really enjoyed it. That research and writing, and then the advocacy at that level. And so it led me to get involved in what's called the Criminal Justice Act panel. And this is a panel, it's a Criminal Justice Act is a federal statute, and there are these panels throughout the country associated with each of the federal district courts. And so the federal defender's office generally will get appointed to take most of the federal criminal cases and the appellate cases, but they have an overflow need if they have conflicts, stuff like that. So they have private parties or private attorneys within those communities that they vet and put on this panel. And so you're eligible for federal appointments to trial level, appellate level, and eventually I started doing habeas corpus work as well. So, and one of the reasons I continued to do that was the opportunity to actually practice in front of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Oh, nice.
And that's not something that you would expect to be able to do in a small rural community like ours, right? So it was, I've felt like I've been really blessed to be able to do that. And so that's sort of it in a nutshell. I ended up in the Federal Defender's Office for about 11 years. And then in 2013, I separated from that service. And that's when I started getting involved in the community a little bit more. When you're a federal employee, there's some limitations on your ability to.
Yeah, we've heard about those.
Right. So it was a bright line for me. So I stayed back because I had been involved in local politics and stuff, in the party in particular, back in the 90s as well. But so took that hiatus. When I separated, I jumped right back in. And so, as you know, I've ended up running for a couple offices, unsuccessfully, but been happy to actually plug into various aspects of the community, including helping organize nonprofit and work with other nonprofits, and had the opportunity to do some mentoring of some really incredible young women in this community that are some of the state's best organizers. And so
cool.
So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So I know you're doing some litigation or some work now with the pipeline. Can you tell us a bit about what that is?
Yes. So I started, I guess a couple years ago, because this pipeline project has been
It's been a while, yeah.
proposed in various forms for like almost 15 years now. So back in 2013 and 14, I started representing some local activists that wanted to challenge the South Dunes power plant portion of the project. A lot of people don't know about that. They're not proposing that now, but so there was an administrative proceeding that they had to go through, which is at the state level, it's called the Energy Facility Siting Council. So several of us, made some comments to provide standing, and then we started and had a party status in that contested case proceeding.
I see.
But when the federal Energy Regulatory Commission actually denied their permit in 2016, that whole proceeding was also suspended. It had never gotten to a decision. So that was one thing. And then we started doing other land use proceedings. I've actually been involved with some of the landowners, representing them in Douglas County and in Coos County, to essentially in opposition to the counties extending the pipeline permits that they granted Pacific Connector 8 and 10 years ago. Wow. They've been continuing to extend these permits, and even though the pipeline alignments have changed, and so we were successful in Douglas County on getting those permits essentially deemed nullified because they're for various reasons. But so they have to, the Pacific Connector has to make application again in Douglas County, and I've got a land use case right in front of the in Land Use Board of Appeals. The Coos County case is pending right now on some extensions of the pipeline.
So the counties were making those extensions.
Yes.
So the county commissioners were approving those extensions.
Essentially, yes. Actually, it's a little complicated in the sense that the planning directors actually believe that they have, discretion to make those decisions, and that was part of some of the litigation that we did in Douglas County. So they needed to give it an actual hearing at some point. But the commissioners, sometimes it doesn't get to the commissioners. It depends on what the right of appeal is, and sometimes it goes to a hearings officer. So in Coos County, for instance, a hearings officer heard the case, and then the Board of Commissioners rubber stamped the hearings officer's decision, and now it's at the court, LUBA. Yeah.
And so have you presented to LUBA before?
Yes, yes, and we argued that case not too long ago. Yeah, so we've got 2 others that are pending in front of LUBA as well right now. So it's an extremely complex project. It really is, and all the folks that have been working in opposition to this for 12 years, I have to say, are somewhat traumatized by having to continue to put all this effort into the opposition, and it's just, there's so many permits. There's the Division of State Lands permit, there's a DEQ permit. Right now there are about 8, I would say 6 to 8 different local land use proceedings in the Coos Bay area. One in front of the city of North Bend, one in the front of the city of Coos Bay, and at least 3, if not 4, in front of Coos County right now. So the folks over there are doing their best to meet the evidence and preserve the estuary and just the importance of the bay, and trying to avoid the dredging and filling that will be going on in order for them to widen the navigation channel to get their big ships in for this project. So that's a little bit of it. I mean, it's also playing out at the federal level right now, because the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission just opened up a 90-day comment period. And so all the coalition partners that are in opposition to this, which are many environmental groups, landowner groups, that are working on addressing and responding to 5,600 pages of analysis and assessment. So big stuff. Yeah,
no kidding. Well, thank you for doing that.
Yes, on the whole, it's been pro bono. So I've been working really hard. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So yeah. So and
You're crazy to do.
Yeah, I know. I've been, when I said in my campaign, especially when I ran for Senate District 3, I just roll up my sleeves, and I'm able to just get to work. Obviously, I'm looking forward to when this is put down again, and hopefully this time it'll be denied with prejudice, so we don't have it, them filing once again. So so we're in the home stretch here. We've got probably about 8 or 9 months of opposition still. So, but there are some mechanisms in place now to help get some funding for some of this work as well. So I'm hoping that might happen.
So. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So you're representing multiple counties then?
No, I'm representing folks in opposition.
So individuals?
Individuals, landowners, and some organizations.
How many counties are involved in this?
Klamath, Douglas, Coos, and Jackson.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a lot of people. And they're taking it by eminent domain? Is that what they're doing?
Yes, it's very concerning. We could talk a little bit about that if you want, but there was a Supreme Court case, I I guess it's maybe 12 years ago now, called Kilo, and it was a bit contentious, so there was quite a dissent, but ultimately Justice Kennedy weighed in on the side of stating that there is a public purpose such that local governments can take private property and transfer it to private entities. For instance, the overall context there was for economic development purposes. So right now, and they haven't taken up another case to resolve this, but right now, under our laws, you can take private property for private gain.
Wow.
And so what happens with the Natural Gas Act is it delegates the authority to the applicant, to the person, to the company that gets the certificate to actually then execute that right of eminent domain in court.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's a big deal, and as much
that
as
is.
And it's really disheartening just because of the failure of this project to really have any economic benefit to folks in our community and in the United States, because the primary interest here is a Canadian company trying to get Canadian gas out of Canada and ship it to Asia, and they want a West Coast port. And so it's really disheartening for some of the ranchers and farmers and folks that I've had the privilege to get to know and work in, and assist, because they do feel traumatized that it's not fair, it's not appropriate, that their land can be taken, their quiet enjoyment of their land for purposes of a foreign corporation to export a product.
Right. Now,
That's
eminent
really it.
domain, do they get paid for that? They don't.
They will get paid sort of the value of the right of way, but
Of right of way.
so they'll bury the pipeline on their properties, and of course the position is that it doesn't take their entire property, because they'll it's buried. There will be a right of way area that they will maintain, but this is natural gas
Wow, I
flowing
know,
through people's
I know.
properties,
I
and
wouldn't
so
want that.
there's some safety concerns, and for many people, I mean, just the fact that there's a pipeline that can
blow up.
Yep. We'll just say that. There all kinds of things can happen. There could be landslides, or there's all kinds of safety potential issues.
Earthquake.
Yep. And people you wouldn't want it on your property.
No,
right?
I wouldn't.
Right. So it's been my pleasure to work for and with these people. Honestly, I really feel for them, and so we just this week actually filed a legal brief, essentially. Challenging FERC's the draft environmental impact statement that FERC issued as being sort of unreadable and unuseful for its purpose, because there are addendums and attachments that have the same nomenclature and labels on them. It's very confusing, and of course then they've only got. These landowners only have 90 days, right, in order to respond to that many pages. So we've made sort of a due process argument the other day, and we'll see what FERC does with it. Yeah. Good. So maybe we can get some more time for everybody, so that everybody feels that they had an actual opportunity to be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing this. Oh my gosh.
Are you practicing alone, or you've got a partner?
No, since I left the Federal Defender's Office, I've been sole practitioner. Yeah. My life partner, Robert, is also an attorney, and he's also a sole practitioner for, so we office share and that kind of thing. But yeah, we both have our own practices. He's trying to retire too, so that does help. Yeah.
You won't let him, right?
Well, no, I'm very happy for him to start slowing down. He also is on the Criminal Justice Act panel, so he takes and he does a lot of federal cases. So yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us a little about one of the hats that you wear, which is Rogue Valley Transportation District.
Right.
You're chair of that board.
Right.
And I think you're coming up for reappointment or re-election.
Yes.
Okay.
It's hard to believe it's already been 4 years. It's been, again, another privilege and quite an inspiration to be able to serve the community in that role. I joke around now about how I've become a transportation geek, because I really, really enjoy learning about all facets of moving people and goods around, and so yes, I've been fortunate. I've been on the board since 2015, and was made chair in 2016. And I will say that one of the most interesting things I've done in the last several years was be heavily involved, maybe a lead, I would say, in the levy that we passed in 2000.
right.
I guess that was in 2015. May of 2016, I'm sorry.
16,
May
yeah.
of 2016. The issue has so many intersections for so many different interests. You know, public transportation is about economic development. Public transportation is about fostering access to education. It's about providing a mode of a means of getting around for people that are dependent on it.
Environment.
Yes, it does. And so it has so many intersections of good positive things that being out there tabling and talking to the public about this levy was just a really good experience. It made me really feel an identity in our community, and that it has an identity, and it has a true desire to see us all sort of succeed and progress, right?
And the levy was successful.
It was, and that's the thing. I mean, a year before it had not been.
That's right.
And so it's a taxing. People decided to tax themselves, and that's something that
That's rare.
Yes. So again, I think everybody saw the value in it, and I was just so thrilled about that, and about how I felt like everybody understood that it was worth us all pitching in so that we can have this great resource for ourselves. So that
and that's made a huge difference in the organization itself.
well, it allowed us to continue and not have to cut some services,
right.
because we had gotten some federal grants for pilot projects for 3 years, and without having passed the levy, we would have had to roll back some of that service. So now we are well positioned, though, and I will have to say just briefly that the district is a nationally recognized small urban transit.
For what? Recognized for what?
It's recognized as being the best in 2017 out of about 300 nationwide of its size.
No, I hadn't heard that.
Yes.
That is.
So we did some press releases, and we had a couple, buses that had, some wrapping that, showed that. But I can't tell you how privileged we are to have this team of leaders at RVTD, and the leadership of our general manager, Julie Brown,
Is
who
phenomenal.
She just, I was trying to figure out how to characterize. She just cares about public transportation mission, and I believe she's cared about RVTD just like she cares for her kids. Like we all strive to care for our kids. I mean, that's how wonderful it is. The culture is one of teamwork, and it is, and they've done some great things, and they will continue to do great things. And she was instrumental because of the way she cares about it. She expanded that to the state level, and she was extremely instrumental in getting public transportation funded at the state level now. She's done wonders on getting public transportation to be seen as an equal partner and an equal component of all transportation in the state.
That's
and
good.
so her political skills, led her to figure out a way to get that funded. And of course, so now we have HB 2017, and we're gonna have like $2.53 million coming to us really soon.
Wow.
To do a major expansion of our services, and we're really excited about that.
That's excellent.
Yes.
That is good news.
So what's your priority, to expand the geographic coverage or to expand the frequency of routes, existing routes?
Well, let me tell you, because we are going through a planning process.
Okay.
We are going through a planning process, and I don't know how much time we have.
We've got
before-
about 5 minutes left.
Good. So I will tell you that this is the whole process for the state filled with criteria for transparency and accountability. Okay, so we have appointed, I maybe don't have the exact term, but an advisory committee that looks at the types of expansions that we wish to seek. And essentially, it's like, sort of like a grant program. We submit what we want to do to the state, and the state then approves it, and then we get these payroll tax dollars that we've been paying now back into our community. And so they have come up with, for the short term, the first 1 to 5 years, what we're looking at as far as expansion is 2 additional evening hours, additional Saturday hours, Sunday service.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, that is.
Excellent.
20-minute service on some specific routes, which will be connecting to some new service. Then the new service will include an Ashland circulator, a Central Point circulator, an East Medford circulator, a East Medford North and South permanent route, an Eagle Point circulator, Northwest Medford circulator, and then a Medford Ashland express route.
Oh, an
So
express route.
Yes. So I can't exactly tell you what the time is going to be and exactly how it's going to play out yet, but those are the things that staff is now putting together for our application for this round.
Tell us what a circulator is.
That was
Yeah.
my question.
So it's gonna be a route that stays within the community, right? So it's not going back to our hub, which is the kind of system that we've had so
No.
far is Spoken Hub, and so this is now gonna allow some transportation within each of those jurisdictions. So yeah.
And weren't you going to do a call-in thing where people?
Yeah,
isn't
real
that-
quick. So we also
Yeah.
have a separate project that is called. Let me see.
Why
if
don't we pick that up
Okay.
in part 2?
All right.
Yeah, so we've come to the end of our first part of this show with our guest, Tonia Moro. And so we're going to close this episode, and hopefully you'll be able to tune in for the next one, and we'll continue the discussion on transportation. But I'd like to, Carol, would you like to thank
I
our,
would like to thank our volunteers.
crew?
Remember that we wouldn't have the show without our volunteers. Wanda, director, graphics, Julian, audio, Dimple, balance, a camera, John, Let's, lighting, Dorothy and David on camera, and Gary, our stage manager. Thank you all.
Thank
very
you,
much.
everybody. And we'd like to thank Rogue Valley TV for providing the studio here and the ability for us to record and actually provide live shows. So we'd like to thank all of the people involved in that. And
Our shows will be shown when?
Our show schedule is
Thursday.
Thursdays at 6:30 and also Saturdays at 3. So those are the 2 times that you can watch us, or you can log on and watch us on demand with roguevalleytv.edu.sou. So thanks for joining us, and I hope you can stay tuned for part 2.
What's better than girl talk? Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? Up before dawn, the coffee is gone. The kids are still sleeping, but not for long. Cook, she's a chauffeur, she's a worker bee. First in the door and last to leave. Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? A chat with the ladies about their day, the ups and downs along the way. She's a cook, she's a chauffeur, she's a worker.